What is up, guys? This is John with Gaming Through the Decades, and we are back with another video. And this time it's a discussion video. And those of you who know, a couple days ago we saw the 25th anniversary of the Super Nintendo, and it got me thinking about a few things. One of those things was I didn't have every console growing up as a kid, and there are some consoles I'm enjoying now as an adult that I didn't have when I was a kid. So we're gonna touch on the topic of what consoles did you miss out on as a kid that you're enjoying now as an adult. So let's go ahead and check that discussion out. So growing up as a kid, I was a Nintendo, Genesis, and PlayStation kid all around. And the late 80s, early 90s, it was pretty easy because there was only really one player in the race, and that was Nintendo. Everybody had a Nintendo. In fact, I didn't even know the Sega Master System existed until probably my late teenage years. So as a very young kid, my first console, the Nintendo, everybody had a Nintendo, so I didn't really miss out on that. But getting into the early 90s, we kind of saw this new thing, which was a split. And we had the Sega Genesis, which is what I had, and we had the Super Nintendo. And of course, we had the oh so wonderful Bit Wars back then. And my parents decided to buy me a Sega Genesis, and I had asked for a Sega Genesis. It did come out obviously before the Super Nintendo, and I fell victim to that crazy marketing that Sega did and that we all came to remember. And I didn't have a Super Nintendo. So I got to miss out on the Super Nintendo as a kid. Now, yes, a few of my friends did have a Super Nintendo, so I got to go over to their house every now and then and play it. But I grew up in a pretty rural area, so it wasn't like my friends were down the street. I had to call them up. We had to schedule the Friday night sleepovers, ask if it was okay to spend the night at my friend's house so we could play Super Nintendo, or they could come over to my house and play Sega. So Super Nintendo is one that I unfortunately missed out on. And believe it or not, I still don't have a Super Nintendo in my collection. Now, it is one of my goals to have a Super Nintendo. Especially lately. I'm going for a full Castlevania collection, so obviously there's going to be a few games I need on the Super Nintendo to complete that, but it's definitely one console that I missed out on, and I'm not quite enjoying it yet as an adult, but it is something I want to go ahead and I'm looking forward to. It'll be cool to experience that console brand new, 25 years after its release. Now, another console that I am loving right now is the original Xbox. I had a pickups video it was probably a couple months ago now, where I found one, at a thrift store for a very good price, and I've just been kind of collecting for it because I'll tell you what, those games right now for that console are incredibly cheap. If you have any interest in the original Xbox, or even if you don't, I would say, you know what, if you got a few extra bucks laying around, it's definitely something to look into. There's so many good hidden gems and first party games that we didn't see on any other consoles. And another cool thing about the original Xbox is you have games like this playing here that were originally just PC games like Serious Sam. Hit and Run was originally on the PC. I know it came out for the other consoles, but I was a big PC player in the early 2000s, late 90s, because if you wanted good 3D graphics, you were playing a PC, let's be honest, guys. So yeah, I missed out on the original Xbox because I did go with the PS2 and Dreamcast at the time, and then I spent some time in the military, and by the time I went to Xbox, the 360 was coming out, and I went in for that. But yeah, the original Xbox was one I missed out on, and there's so many good games, and they're so cheap right now. Like I said, get in on the original Xbox while it's cheap. I mean, you got games like Panzer Dragoon Orta, you got some really good rail shooters, Crimson Skies, Ninja Gaiden Black. I mean, there's so many good games. And there are some good RPGs for you RPG players. But yeah, guys, I want to know what you think. What are some consoles you missed out on as a kid that now you're loving and experiencing for the first time as an adult? Like I said, again, for me, it's definitely, and the Nintendo 64. I didn't have a Nintendo 64 growing up. My friend had a Nintendo 64. I had a PlayStation. So my experience with the Nintendo 64 was really rather limited to an extent, and I always kind of wanted one, but I wasn't the richest kid growing up by any means. We were probably lower middle class. You know, I always got the consoles later, you know, in their release, in their life cycle because they were cheaper. And, you know, if it was like, hey, I had a Sega, if I wanted a Super Nintendo, my mom would be like, hey, you've got a Nintendo and a Sega. What do you need a Super Nintendo for? So there's a lot I missed out on, and I want to know what you guys missed out on and that you're enjoying. So leave a comment below or make a response video, and it would be kind of cool to get this topic going and to see what other gamers and other fans have to say on this topic. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.